Greetings everyone, welcome to another one of our free Friday community classes right here on the YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, please do so you'll get a little ding every time I upload a new free class for you to watch. This week we are talking about a massive grouping of plants known as the Lamiaceae family, the mint family, 236 some odd genera, 7,500 individual species. We will not be talking about all of them today, just so you know. Rather, we're going to talk about why this is a crucial family of plants for you to be working within plant spirit work, why it is plants from this family that I have my students and apprentices connect with first, and why people who are involved with spiritual herbalism, herbal magic, green sorcery, all of that, always have affinities for some of the plants in this family. I think you're going to be really surprised about where this conversation goes, so stick around. First, there is a spiritual reason why these plants are related that goes beyond the botanical. Now, we have grouped certain plants together, 7,500 or so of them, into the mint family because there are botanical classifications that make these plants be related. For example, lots of the plants in this family have a square stem instead of a round one. They have often serrated leaves that grow opposite each other on the stems, each pair coming out at a right angle, so when you look down at the plant from the top, it's got a cool little spiral whorl pattern. Most of the flowers on these plants have 5 symmetrical fused petals that look like 2 little sets of lips, and they are generally incredibly aromatic and flavorful. Not necessarily good aromatic and flavorful, but aromatic and flavorful nonetheless. So these are some botanical reasons why botanists, scientists say all these 7,500 plants are related. They should go in this mint family, this Lamiaceae family together. So there's a botanical reason, an anatomical reason for it. But in this class, we're going to be exploring more the spiritual reason, the way that we as human folk engage with plants from this family and why they are so important. One thing to consider about the mint family plant is when we see the herbs that are the champions of particular cultural culinary traditions and particular folk medicine traditions, there is always mint family representation in a strong way. So when you think about Italian cooking, so many of those herbs, as we'll talk about in a minute, come from this family. When you think about Indian cooking, when you think about the medicinal plants of the Midwest of the United States, mint family, mint family, mint family, over and over again. For folks who take the time to learn the scientific names of plants, and I encourage you to do this. Why? Because the folk name of one plant in one place could be the folk name of a completely different plant in a different place. So when herb nerds are talking about a plant and using folk names, sometimes they end up talking about 2 different plants. When we take the time to use the scientific names, we're actually ensuring that the plant that we're talking about is the plant that we want to be talking about. So take time to learn scientific names. If you don't, it's very, very important in the work. For those folks who do look at the scientific names, some of the genera that we will find in the mint family include Salvia, Scutellaria, Stachys, Vitex, Thymus, Nepeta, right? So these are all names that you've seen as you've looked at various medicinal herbs, various magical herbs, and the different texts and tomes that you might read. So these are plants that are incredibly prevalent in cultural cuisine and folk medicine and beauty and in ritual. And before we get into the real core of what I want to talk about today, let me give you an example of some of my favorite mint family plants. This is again a list of 10 out of 7,500. It is a drop in the bucket, but these are the ones that I personally have the most connection to. And when I give this list to people, they say, oh, A, I had no idea those plants had anything in common, and B, those are totally plants that I like to connect to. So consider basil, spearmint, peppermint, rosemary, garden sage, lavender, hyssop, oregano, marjoram, thyme, bee balm, catnip, vitex, horehound, lemon balm, patchouli, right? The list goes on and on. These plants are all related. So today, as we're talking about the spiritual grouping known as the Lamiaceae family, the mint family plant. These are just some of the plants that we're talking about. As I mentioned, this family is vast, and each one of these herbs certainly deserves their own monograph and video, and maybe someday I'll start a playlist of 7,500 plants from the Lamiaceae family, but probably not. More likely we're going to focus on this dozen or so that I really like from this family. So we're going to get into some really interesting parts of this collection and why this is an important plant family for you to be working with. First, let me mention this. Let me go on a little sidebar, a little tangent. I have heard herbalists, I have heard folks involved in green sorcery and herb magic talk about plants from the mint family being beginner plants. Absolutely not. This is wrong. The mint family plants are not beginner. They are essential. They're foundational. The reason that they show up over and over again, and they are so ubiquitous in any conversations about plant medicine and plant magic, is that they have a deep and abiding connection with the human narrative, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. These are the essential plants that most people build their work with plants off of, and they are ubiquitous for countless reasons. They are deeply and intimately connected to the human narrative, as I mentioned. And so it's very easy for people to say, oh, peppermint, that's like a beginner's herb. Oh, lemon balm, that's a beginner's herb. Don't think this way. These plants are popular, they're famous for a reason, right? And we're going to lean into those reasons today and tap into that profound amount of magic and medicine that exists with these herbs, letting go of this beginner label. It's garbage, so let it go. So there's an important reason why we want to know, why we want to work with, why we want to explore plants. The first is that the similarities and the differences of the individual plants in this family can teach us a lot about understanding the energetic nuance between plants. When we think about the fact that rosemary and lavender are both in the same botanical family classification, it gives us an opportunity to meditate on how are these plants similar, how are the personhoods of these plants similar, and how are their temperaments very different. Just like two members of a family, there's going to be some similarity and there's going to be some differences. And so there's an invitation for us to contemplate why these plants might have something in common and why they might individually hold their own space and do their own thing. Another reason is that these plants tend to be the most approachable of all the plants. They are the ones that we are attracted to because of their color, their aroma, their flavor. Again, they show up all the time. So this is an important family of plants to know, to work with, and to explore. Why? First of all, these are the most approachable plants out there. These are the plants that show up where we show up. We have a deep relationship with them. They show up in our recipes, in our formulas, in our folklore, all over the planet since time immemorial. This is very important. There's also an invitation for us to meditate on the ways that the plants in this family are similar to each other and different than each other. We can take, for example, rosemary and horehound and say these plants don't look alike on the surface, they don't smell alike, they have very different temperaments and energetics. So where is the similarity between these plants? Why are they classified in the same family? And what are the differences? It's just like two members of your own family, right? There's going to be some similarities. Sometimes those similarities are subtle, cultural, spiritual, and there's going to be some obvious differences as each autonomous person does their own thing. So this is a really good way to go a little bit deeper into the personhood of the plants. Being cosmopolitan, wherever you are in the world, these are accessible plants. So if you have a pot, a raised bed, a windowsill garden, a community garden, whatever, these are plants that, forgiving as they are, will grow for you so that you can have a direct relationship with them. You can steward them as they grow. You can grow them from seed all the way to harvest, and that is a very powerful part of this work. They have shown themselves to be deeply concerned and entwined in the human drama, right? They like our story. They've been part of our story since the beginning. That, for me, is reason enough to work with these plants because they are the ones that speak the most to the human experience. They are, in my opinion, essential initiatory spirits in this work. So there's a lot more to this, which we're going to get into here in a moment, but I want to lay the groundwork that these are plants that are accessible. They're easy to grow. They grow where you are. Some version of them grows where you are, and they are interested in having a deep relationship with you. So this in and of itself creates a fantastic foundation and an invitation for us to get in and do the work with plants. Now, before we get into the real sort of mysteries revealed part of this particular class, I want you to know, this is a gentle reminder, that this is just scratching the surface. These classes that we do every Friday here on the YouTube are the tip of the proverbial iceberg, and this work goes very, very deep. So if this is stuff you're interested in, and you want more, and you want to bring more of this into your life, I suggest that you come join us over on Patreon. We're doing advanced classes. There's always a course happening with new lessons every Monday. We do community plant spirit journeys every lunar cycle, where you get to spend an entire month sitting with an individual plant spirit, learning directly from them, journeying with their medicine, doing really beautiful guided meditations and rituals throughout the month. We do Q&As and vlogs and recipes and behind the scenes. You get audio cuts of all the classes that you can listen to when you want, when you're driving in the car or at the gym or whatever. So as we get into this, just remember, this is chapter 1. If you want the rest of the book, come over to the Patreon and support. You can get in on ground level at like $3, and I give you a ton of perks, and it also just lets me know that this is important to you and that this work means something, and it helps me continue doing what I'm doing. So thanks for all of that. With that all out of the way, let's talk about the Lamiaceae family plants, why this is such an important plant family to work with. So many folks ask me where to start, okay? Which of the first plants I should work with? What plant should I work with? Who should I sit with? Who should I connect with when I'm trying to learn plant spirit communication and magic? Who do I go work with? You go work with plants from the mint family 100% of the time. You go find your rosemary, your peppermint, your lavender, your hyssop, your thyme, whoever you have access to. These are the plants that will initiate you into the ways of plant spirit work, and they will do it in a way that is clear, direct, fast, and visceral, right? You will feel this in your body. People sometimes fetishize some of the more exotic plants, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go sit with astragalus, or I'm gonna go sit with, linden, and that's great, and sometimes it works, but sometimes people get frustrated because these are plants that are very quiet, right? And sometimes that we have to train our plant spirit communication faculties before we can dig in with some of these other kinds of plant spirits. So which plants to work with when you're starting or when you want to go deeper? Please choose plants from the mint family. You'll have great success. How to start communicating and learning directly from plant spirits? Sit with plants from the mint family. They have a way of communicating that is highly attuned to the human heart and the human mind. Their communication comes through louder, more clear, and with symbolism that is more easy for us to access and digest and understand. So as you're learning plant spirit communication, if you are stumbling, if you're having a hard time really getting it, go pick a mint family plant to sit with, and they will show you the way. People also ask, which plants are the safest for me to start working with in making herbal medicine or taking herbal medicine that I've made? Plants from the mint family. It's not a free pass. Not all of them can be, you can't drink gallons of tincture safely, but these are plants that are very forgiving, and very few people have sensitivities, allergies, and all of that to these plants. Similarly, people ask which plants are the safest for me to start doing herbal magic with when I'm doing ritual and ceremony and spellcraft. Mint family plants. Very forgiving, very protecting, very understanding of the human narrative. They are not going to push you into spaces that you're not ready to go into. These spirits, when they show up, aren't going to do the kind of intense work that sometimes other plants can do that we might not be prepared for. When I need to get some work done, who are the loudest and fastest responding plants magically that I can work with? You guessed it, mint family plants. Again, they are intimately tied up in the human drama. And when you start sitting with these plants, you will understand why people obsess about lavender, why people obsess about peppermint and spearmint and rosemary. These are plants that are deeply, deeply connected to the human experience, the human person. So when you need a quick response, call on somebody who understands the human need for response. They understand the questions that we tend to ask and the needs that we tend to have. Which plants will be gentle with us and teach us as we go and forgive us if we do something wrong, if we harvest inappropriately, or we forget to say thank you, or we dry some herbs wrong and they end up going to waste. Who is a good family of plants to learn with, to learn on? Mint family plants. They don't hold a grudge. They're going to be forgiving. If you harvest a bunch of peppermint and you don't dry the peppermint properly and it all molds and rots, there will be no offense. This is a plant that will say, hey, we're going to do it better next time, right? Lesson learned. They're going to give you inspiration. They're going to lead you to teachers and books and experiences and dreams that will help you step your game up so that you don't have to do that again next time. Which tend to be the closest to the plant spirit worker, the spiritual herbalist, the green sorcerer, the animistic gardener? It's mint family plants. Ask anybody you know that works with herbs. In their top 5, I guarantee you're going to see there's deer. You're going to see that they have some member of the mint family plant as a close ally to their work, an ally that they're working with all the time. So start getting to know the mints and consider which mints are already part of your life, which ones you're already connected to, fascinated by. Don't fall into the trap of beating yourself up because you love lavender. If you love lavender, journey with lavender. Lavender can teach you all the things that all the other plants can teach you, okay? We have berated these herbs and called them beginner and basic far too much. They are ubiquitous and so wrapped up in the human narrative, and humans are so into them for a reason. There's a reason why they're popular. There's a reason why we keep talking about them over and over again, and it is worth our discovery. So hopefully this has fired you up to go out and learn about some mint family plants and to explore your own relationship with these plants and see how they're already playing a role in your life. If you are already good friends with a member of the mint family plant, tell me about it in the comments below. Also, down in the video details, there's links to Patreon and some other good stuff I think you'll enjoy. Again, please subscribe so I know you're out there, and I'll see you next week.